Thank you, everyone. And I want to inform you if I will share the attendance link for this class in the end of the class. So please join the class until the end. And first thing first, before we start the sessions, I would like to introduce you our speaker today, the Honorable Dr. Teoh. So before it, I would like to read the profile of Dr. Teoh. So, Dr. Teoh currently holds the position of the head of school and senior lecturer at Fitrox College in Malaysia, overseeing the School of Industrial Management. His extensive academic background includes a bachelor degree in applied statistics and master's degree in statistics from the School of Mathematical Science at University Science Malaysia. Dr. Teoh furthered his education with a doctorate in organizational behavior and development from the School of Management at the same university, and a second master degree in counseling from the School of Educational Studies. And in 2020, he was honored with several prestigious awards, such as the Best Presenter at the Industry 4.0 Regional Conference, the Editors Pick at the International Postgraduate Symposium in Tourism and Hospitality, and the Best Poster at the 6th Asia International Conference. Dr. Teoh is actively engaged in scholarly pursuits, serving as a editor-in-chief for Annals of Human Resource Management Research, a section editor for Science Business Review, and a reviewer from Psychological Reports. Additionally, he holds certification in neocognitive behavioral therapy, a drawing house stream person, mindfulness love therapy, mental health coaching, and choice theory reality therapy. So for Dr. Teoh, the time is yours.
All right. Okay. Good morning. Thank you to Miss Alicia, yeah, for introducing me. So today it is really my honor, yeah, to be invited by AIBPM, to do a simple sharing. I would say introductions to cost management. So without further ado, let me share my screen. Okay. Yeah. All right. Okay. Can you see my slides?
Uh, we still cannot see your slide.
Ah,
Ah,
now,
can see.
yeah, you are able to see. All right. Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, for the response. All right. So yeah, since we have only 1 hour, so without further ado, let me start my sharing on cost management. So before I talk further about cost management, maybe let me to have a quick introductions about myself in depth. So but before that. Talk about this learning objective is that what we can learn from this sharing. So we have a few point. Okay, the first one is that we will grab the concept and also important of cost management in budgeting and project control. And then second one is that we learn about type of project costs, including direct and indirect. And third one is that various cost estimation method, such as analogous, parametric, and bottom up. Today we will not do much about calculation because it's only 1 hour, but at least it's a good introductions to you if you are interested in cost management or somehow you are related to this concept. Number four, we learned about cost control process like earned value management. So if you are someone who actually come from the experts of project management, so EVM is not something new to you, and also variance analysis. And also we will learn about budget allocations to project activity and also important for financial plan update. And also the benefit of using project management tool like Primavera and also MSP for cost control. That is something that we will learn, and something that I would say introductions for us to get a early exposure. All right, so let me introduce myself. My name is Dr. Derek. So my full name is Dr. Teoh. So basically, I'm from Malaysia, Penang. So I born in Penang, and currently I stay in Penang. So to be more precise, my house is just next to University Science Malaysia. So it's just a walking distance because it's Minden Height. So very near to USM. All right, and then yeah, I come from this primary school in Jelutong, if you know about Penang. And then after that, I went to SMK Jelutong, also at Jelutong. Then after that, my Form 6, after Form 5 high school, I went to MBS, a Methodist Boys School. Then after that, I did all my undergraduate plus postgraduate study in USM. All right, so this is about my background. So I have four qualification as mentioned by Miss Alicia. So the first one is my first bachelor's degree. Okay, so I got my bachelor's degree in applied statistics. Then after that, I do my first master's degree in master in statistics, also from USM. Then after that, I jumped for you. So I jumped to management. So PhD, I got it from School of Management, yeah, in the area of organizational behavior and development. Then right after that, I did my second master in USM as well. So I did a master in counseling in the same university as well, and I just graduated last year. So this is about my education level. All right. So my employment status, I'm actually a pure academician. Never worked in other field, but it's all in lecturing line. So my first employment was in Hanjiang University College of Communication. Yeah. So I worked there for 6 years after my first degrees graduation. Then after that, I moved to Central College Penang for another 7 years. So altogether, 13 years in total, up to Central College. And then 2 years before, I moved to VTROC College, or we call it as VTROC Academy Syndrome Berhad. Yeah, so yeah, I moved to my current institution. So this is my 15 years of working as a lecturer. So this is my employment. Then other than that, my volunteer work. So I'm also a city volunteer for around 18 years. Yes. So yeah, I joined since youth until today. I'm still active volunteer, and at the same time, I also a volunteer at Tan Siang Mitra Welfare Center as well. So basically, I contribute in these two places, right? Then my professional membership, like the first one, AIBPM, like what we are here today. So I'm a deputy country director in Malaysia. So the country director is actually Dr. Daisy from USM. So I'm the deputy one. And then also under MBOT, Malaysian Board of Technology. So I was awarded with professional technologist. This is why my title with a TS. And also under Lembaga Counselor, I'm a registered counselor in Malaysia. And also under Human Resource Development Corporation, I'm an accredited trainer in Malaysia as well. So this is the professional membership. So, all right, this is a short introductions about myself. So without further ado, let's move on to today's topic. What is cost management? So today we will not go into detail, especially on the calculation, but it's a good grasp on the concept and also how is it related to us, especially in the management studies or business study about cost management. So first of all, cost management, of course, is a systematic approach to planning and controlling a project's budget. So budget, of course, is kind of like money. So in any project, cost is one of the main constraint because money is not like infinite, it's always a constraint other than scope, time, and quality, right? So effective cost management ensure that we predict expenses. We can predict expenses accurately and take steps to prevent the project from exceeding the budget. So why we need to learn cost management? Because it helps us to control by predicting the expenditure so that we don't exceed what we have on hand. So in practice, this means that we need to determine what project will cost and we need to manage the actual spending so that it align with our forecast. So how much we forecast and how much is the actual expenditure, it has to be aligned so that without cost management, project can easily overspend. You see, if we don't really manage our own costs, even our personal cost management, without a proper cost management, then we will easily overspend. Then we have an issue. For example, we have a delay and project cancellations due to insufficient costs. So for example, if we put it into a project management, so if a project start with a budget, for example, $500,000, but there's no cost control in place. So this will lead to the team might spend excessively on certain resources and it will deplete the funds and leaving little or for other phases. That means it is not enough for the later phases. So cost management help us to actually predict how much we should spend. So this is the basic introductions on cost management. All right. So in
Okay.
terms of cost man, sorry.
Okay. Sorry. Your slide is not changing. Is it?
Oh, not changing.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I'm already. Oh, okay. What about now? Did you?
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
changing.
Okay. Let me click. Did you see principle? The words comes out.
Now it's bug principles.
You see the word principle, right?
Yeah.
I think, sorry, it's a little bit slow from my side, I guess. Okay, so let me go back to the introduction. My slide. Okay, sorry, did you see cost management slide? What is cost management?
Yeah. What is cost management? I can see it.
Okay, sorry about that. Thank you for letting me know. All right, so let me repeat it again in a fast way. So what is cost management? Is a process of planning and controlling budget. So in a layman term, plan and control our money on hand so that we can plan for the project. So if we are able to plan effectively, we can predict the expenditure. That means the expenses, so that we can reduce the project from going over budget, so that we can plan everything within the budget. All right. So now I move on to the second slide. It's about principle. So are you with me with the principle slide?
No. I think you need to change the slide to the share
Oh,
screen.
okay. Never mind. Maybe I do have a PDF, I guess, but let me make it PDF so that maybe I think I did with together with animation. So yeah, maybe it's heavy over here, but it's all right. Okay. Sorry about that. Okay. Okay. Let me reshare again. Oops. Okay. Okay. I share my PDF version. Are you with me with the first page of PDF cost management?
Yeah. Yeah. We can
Yeah.
see.
Thank you. Let me make it as the full screen. Is it here? View, yes. Okay, all right. Okay, so cost management. So I think this one I go through with you just now, but I think you didn't see my slide. This is the learning objective today that we will learn together. We will learn about concept importance of cost management in budgeting and project control. Okay, number two, we will learn about type of project costs, including direct and indirect. We will learn about cost estimation, such as analogous, parametric, and bottom up. Then number four, we will learn about cost control processes like earned value management. EVM is quite famous in project management module, as well as variance analysis. Number five, we will learn about budget allocations to project activity, as well as important for financial plan updates. And last one, we will get to know about project management tool such as Primavera or MSP for cost control. So this is my introduction just now. So maybe you didn't see my slides. So basically, this is my identity that I come from Penang, just beside USM. Then my first bachelor in statistics, second one was in master in statistics, my PhD in organizational behavior, and my second master in counseling. Then this is my employment, Hanjiang University College for the first 6 years, followed by next 7 years, Central College. And so far, I'm in Vitra College under Vitra Academy St. Berhad for 2.5 years, something like that. Then this is my volunteer work. I joined CZ for 18 years and 7 years in Tan Siang Mitra Welfare Center. Then this is my professional membership. AIBPM, I'm the Deputy Country Director. Then MBOT, I'm the Professional Technologist in Malaysia. And I'm also a registered counselor in Malaysia. And I'm also an accredited trainer in Malaysia. That is my professional membership. All right, because this one I did introductions before. So due to time constraints, so I'll just make a quick one. So yeah, I just talk about cost management. So what is that? It's actually planning and controlling budget for a project. So if we're able to control or we say manage the cost, then we can predict how much we are going to spend so that we don't go over budget. Yeah, that is the concept of cost management. All right, next we talk about principles. So in cost management, we have a few principles. The first one is cash flow analysis. All right, so as you can see over here, this cash flow analysis, it actually involves two main things. It talk about cost and benefit of a project. So cash flow analysis consider how much the money will flow in and out of the project over time. So that means the cash, how it flow. So for example, if a project costs, example, $300,000, but at the end you generate 700,000 in income. So you put in 300,000, but you got $700,000 at the end. That is to say we have a positive cash flow. So this is about cash because we want to manage costs. So this is something that we get to know. Okay, how much we put in and how much we get at the end. So positive, that means the outcome is more than the income. Okay, that means the revenue that we generated more than the cost that we put in. If it's negative, that means we don't get the profit. Whatever that we get in return is actually lesser than the cost that we pump in. All right, so that is the first principle. Now we move on to the next principle is about tangible cost. So tangible cost is something that we can directly measure and record. So for example, payment for equipment or salaries, something that we can measure. So as we can see here, for instance, if $150,000 was allocated for material, let's say we want to buy material, but we only spend $100,000. So that is to say we save $50,000 as a tangible saving, which can be relocated or we can save for the company benefits. So that is something that we can measure. We know what we want to buy something and it can be measured. What about intangible costs? So intangible costs here, that of course is opposite of tangible. It is not easily measured but still impact the project. Not easily measured but still impact. So this include factor like employee morale, environmental impact, and brand reputation. Something that you can't really see or measure, but somehow it impacts our revenue a lot. For example, if employees are working overtime regularly, that means they keep working OT overtime, there may be a moral drop leading to decreased productivity, then which is an indirect but important cost to consider because psychologically they are affected, then they will affect their productivity. So that is something that we need to consider when we talk about cost management. So these are the three principles that we get to know. So other than that, we also have another two type of costs. One is called direct cost and another called indirect cost. So as we can see here, direct cost is something directly tied to specific project, easily traceable. That means they solely for this project. So what I give example here, example like salary. So if team members are hired solely for this project, that means they only meant for this project. So their salary are direct costs because they are only meant for particular project. For example, software purchase, if they buy a software for a project only for that particular project use, then it is also considered under direct costs. So on the other hand, what is indirect cost? So it's a general expenses not tying to one project, but is supporting multiple projects. That means it is not only for one project lah. So it will be shared among all other projects together. That is called indirect cost. For example, electricity bill. So support the entire office. We need the electricity to support the entire office. So it is not specific just to one project because all projects they run concurrently. So same goes to telephone bill because it's used by different teams or different department in an organization. So this is making it hard to assign to only one project, but all projects team member are using it. So if it is support multiple project rather than only one project, we call it as indirect cost. That is a principle where we need to understand when we learn about cost management. All right. So why is it important for us to learn about cost management? Why is it so important? All right, let's go to the first one. We need to identify each of the costs within your project. Or every cost in your project is very essential to study so that we can list all potential expenses. That means every single part of the project executions, we need to know about their costs. So this step help us to prevent unexpected costs from arising later on. Because once you identify it earlier, you have an expectation. So you will not get shocked later, oh, I need this budget or I need that cost from the other side of the project. Then maybe you are in shock or maybe you don't really have enough funds to proceed the project. All right. So the first one, we need to identify first each of the costs within the project. And the second function is that ensure that the expenses are approved before purchasing. If you have cost management, we talk about approval. Then this is emphasizing formal approval process to keep track how we spend our money and prevent unauthorized expenses. This is very important, for example, in corporate setting. So let's say we want to buy a new software, we should have the approval from the finance department. Why? This ensures that everything that we want to buy align with the budget and prevent unnecessary expenditure. All right. And number third one, why is it so important to learn cost management? Because it keeps a central record of all costs incurred. So that means a centralized record, or I would say a main record, allow us for easy tracking and accountability of all expenses as the project proceeds. So whatever come in and out, we will record as a whole. Then for us, it's easily to detect what we have spent and how much it has been come in and out as a cash flow as well. Number four, control the overall cost of your project if we have cost management, because we can make sure that the project, as we start until it ends, we can make sure that the project remain within the budget limits, and we can identify also area where cost can be reduced because we have the overall cost. So when we want to look at this, like for example, certain area, the cost spikes up, very high, and we look into it. What else that we can do in order to reduce the cost? Right? So this is something very important because we can see the whole overall picture. And the last but not least for the important is that we can keep our project and financial plans up to date. What does that mean? It means that we can regularly update our plan so that we can adapt to challenges or remain aligned with the budget as the budget evolve. So that means, let's say, okay, I give you one example to understand this point better. Let's say the cost of raw material unexpectedly, suddenly, we have the early forecasting that, okay, this raw material needs how much. But suddenly when it comes to that stage, unexpectedly it increases. So we need to update because the budget already changed. We need to update our budget. We need to update our financial plan so that we can adjust our project scope, whether we can narrow it down or we can do some changes or we can find additional funding so that our project can continue. So if you keep updating your financial plan, then you can adjust, the okay, sudden challenges which come to our point in terms of cost. So cost management easy to help us within this. Identify the cost, ensure everything within the budget. We have a record in and out. We have an overall picture, and we can keep updating the financial plan as we move on with the projects. So this is very good if we are able to control the budget. All right, so what cost management include? So what is actually inside cost management? Like the first one, budget. So the budget, of course, as you understand, is a total planned amount of money allocated for the project. That means how much as a whole we allocate for the project. Of course, this include estimating the costs, setting aside fund for all project tasks. So what does that mean by setting fund for all project tasks? Like for example, like AIBPM, we used to have conference, right? So let's say I give you a total budget of $50,000, just example. So this $50,000 should cover like venue rental. What else that we can think about? Like marketing, speaker fees, something realistic financial expectation, include everything. So budget that means is a whole where it include all the simple detail. This is under cost management. And also we talk about ROI. What is ROI? Return on the investment. So return on investment, that means usually it is used to measure profitability of the project. I mean, how likely it will generate profit. So it's usually calculated by comparing the value or the benefit over the cost that we pump in. So example, if let's say we pump in certain costs, but the value that we get or the return that we get in future, it is actually higher than the cost. That means our ROI is generating income. That means we have a positive or rewarding ROI. But in return, if our outcome is actually less than our general income, I mean the cost that we pump in, then we get a negative ROI. So this is very important for a company, especially for a project, so that we want to see whether it is profitable to continue with the project or not. So let me give you one example. If a company invests $30,000, okay, in a new software system, and then it will increase productivity, and due to the productivity increase, it generate, let's say, $45,000 revenue. You pump in 30,000, but at the end you get 45,000 in return. So this is called positive ROI. So cost management can help us to detect this, whether this is really generate positive ROI or not. The third one, what is inside cost management is funding. All right. So funding refers to where the project money is coming from. We need to know where does the fund come into our project. So it could be internal fund, it could be external fund. So as an academician, this relates to us very much because we need to do research, we need funding, maybe from the stakeholders, maybe from the company that, have the interest in our research. So example, a university research project, let's say we get a FRGS, if you are from Malaysia, then you get to know it's actually from the government grant, right? So we cannot just simply spend the money that provided by the government. We have to, practice some cost management where we need to make sure that the funding is used efficiently and complies with any condition from the government. So usually we need to show how are we going to spend the proposed budget. We need to show them the funding. So this funding is really important because it's a strategic planning on our expenditure and allocation. Next is about expenses. In cost management, we talk about how we're going to spend this money. So expenses, of course, it was from the cost incurred during the project life cycle. We can expand, we can go and spend the money because it is a cost that we allocate for the project. So it includes material because we will need to buy material for a project, labor, or overhead costs. So we need to manage expenses because to avoid overspending. That means we don't want to overspend it, and also unexpected financial problem because we overspend it. Then maybe we need to call a stop for the project, or maybe we need to borrow extra money. Then we got financial issue later on. Then other than that, we talk about spending. All right. So spending refer to the actual amount as the project progresses. We have a planned amount, we have an actual amount. So it is important to monitor spending continuously to make sure that the project doesn't go over budget. So expenses is like the previous one, expenses is like we trace, how where we're going to spend. Spending is we trace at that particular point of time how much already spent. Is it aligned with our expectation during the point of time? If it is overspent, what happened? Which part that take more money? So what should we do next? It's like an alert to all of us. And last but not least, in cost management, we also need to record benefits. So benefit, of course, is something positive impact or value that the project can deliver after you pump in your costs. Okay, so maybe I can give you an example is that like in a customer service improvement project, let's say we want to improve our customer service of our company. So the benefit, let's say we send them for training. So the benefit that they can gain, maybe reduce response time and higher customer satisfaction. Well, this is a more on service line. So customer are happy. So we need to track this benefit to show the value achieved from the invested costs. So all this is related to the cost that we pump in, how much budget that we put in. So whether it's a positive in return, so where does the funding come from and how do we plan on it? So how much we allocate for expenses and what is the real spending budget and what is the benefit gain after we pump in the costs. These are all in cost management. All right. So we talk about concept, we talk about importance, we talk about what is inside of cost management. Let's look at the implementation way. How cost management be implemented in a project. So in order, because cost management is just a concept, so how we put them in practice. So the first one is cost management plan. So as we can see here is actually a plan. It's a fundamental of cost management in a project. You always, before you do something, we always need to have a plan, isn't it? So it will outline how cost will be estimated, how we estimate the cost. Then after we estimate how we budget the cost and how we control the cost throughout the project. So we need to have the plan so that we can see the entire picture of the project. So this plan will ensure all stakeholder understand. All stakeholder, that means those who are related indirectly or directly, understand how the budget will be monitored and controlled so that they will feel confidence with your executions or feel confident to pump in the investment in your project. So we need to have a plan. Most important thing is how you're going to estimate your costs, how you're going to budget your costs, and how are you going to control your costs. This is how we're going to do cost management. So you need to have your plan. The second one, at the bottom, activity cost estimate. Okay, now activity cost estimate, that means we need to calculate the expected cost for every single task or activity within the project because project is a whole. So within the project, of course, we have different steps or activity that or tasks that we need to complete. So we need to estimate every single activity with its associated costs. So these estimates are based on the resources required. So how we're going to estimate, of course, we need to consider the labor cost, the material cost, the equipment cost, and also the time needed, to complete each activity. So it's like, we run a project management like that. We get to know the resources required and the time required. So estimating this cost accurately, if we are sorry, if we are able to estimate the cost accurately, then we can come out a realistic budget. We can come out realistic budget to tell people how much in total we need from the budget. Okay, and the third one, in order to run this, we need to have cost baseline. So what does that mean? Cost baseline often understood as a time-based budget. That means we have a time base how we're going to run our project. So as an approved version of the project budget, that means from this stage, how much you need to spend. At this stage, what you need to do, the task together with the cost. So it is usually used to measure and monitor project performance because at this time you're supposed to be able to come until this stage, then we are able to look at the performance so far. So the cost baseline, excuse me. So the baseline usually help us to track how much money should be spent at different stages, like what I mentioned, because it's a time phase. So different stage, it should spend different amount of money. So since we are at this stage, then we are supposed to spend this amount of money. So we can always track. So and serve as a point of reference for cost control. If it is more than what is being planned, then we need to look at it, what is going on. If it's something that cannot be avoided, that means we need to adjust the later part budget. So whether we reduce it or we require more fund, or if it is not viable, then we have to call a stop for that. All right. So this is cost baseline. That means you have different time phase. You should have different cost allocation. And number four, in cost management, we also need to measure our performance. Because you pump in money, we need to talk about performance. So how to measure this? Of course, we talk about measurement, we talk about tracking. Tracking the performance and comparing actual project. That means what is really being done, the cost with the planned cost. You plan the cost in such a way, but what is the real actual cost has been done. So we compare whether the project is on track or not. So on track, that means, yeah, what we actually spend with what we actually plan to spend, they are almost there. But if there's big difference, that means they are not on track. So usually we will talk about key metrics in order measurement. We talk about key metric. Later on, I'll talk about that cost performance index because CPI, cost performance index or schedule performance index. So that means that we have a key indicator KPI for every lecturer. So the same goes to here. Our cost performance index and schedule. One is monitor your cost, whether you're on track. One is monitor your schedule, whether the speed of the project completion is on track or not. So they will provide you. So if you go and plug this index will tell you whether the project is under budget because the cost can tell you under budget or over budget, or whether it is behind schedule or ahead of schedule or you're on schedule. So we need to measure the performance in terms of cost and in terms of schedule. So this is how we're going to put in. We have a plan, then we activate every single cost from the project. Then we combine all the activity, different timeline, we need different costs. Then we check this is our planned cost and this is our actual cost. Is that the same or approximately the same? If they are, that means you are on track. If it is not, then we need to do something about it. All right. So that is cost management in the project. Then, uh, just now I talked about plan. Plan, it got three stages: estimate cost, determine budget, and control cost. So let me tell you, estimate cost basically is we need to forecast every part of the project that will cost. For example, labor, like I mentioned, material and equipment. We need to estimate every single activity in a project. Why we want to estimate the cost? So that we can tell our boss, our sponsor, right, the budget that we need. So after we get to know about the cost from each single activity, then we need to allocate the estimated cost that we got it earlier, then to a specific project activity or phases, setting a clear spending limit. That means we have a overall budget. We get to know so that we can request from the company. All right. So maybe I give you an example in a construction project. Let's say today we want to construct like a building. So we might assign $300,000 for foundation work, $200,000 for framing, and $100,000 maybe for electrical work. So all this cost was estimated. Then I actually reported the budget as a whole so that you get to know how much for the budget for the entire project. So after I have the I have the budget, of course, I put it in implementation. But I cannot just put it like that. I need to control the cost. Control cost means I need to monitor. I need to monitor the expenses during the project and I need to make adjustment when necessary. All right. So if let's say like we go back to the same scenario, constructions project. So if you see rise in material cost, maybe due to external factors, the material cost has been increased. Then the project manager need to relocate fund to stay within the budget. Like what I mentioned, either you adjust a little bit the later part of the project, or you need to call in more funding, or maybe you can call it a stop if there's no way to help you to stay within budget. So cost management prevent you from more losses if you are able to detect the issue earlier, right? So how are we going to do estimated costs? These are various techniques. These are actually various techniques, and it involve usually it might involve some calculations. But like what I mentioned today, it's just introductions and within time constraint. So we are not going to learn how we're going to calculate, but it's something that good exposures to all of us. So the first one at the bottom left, projected cost of a project. Projected cost, yeah, for a particular project. So what does that mean? That means it's the estimated total cost of completing the entire project. So we need to take consideration every single activity that it will incur with cost. Now, of course, this will involve direct costs, like what I mentioned earlier, and indirect costs, which support multiple of project. Yeah, all these costs need to be taken into consideration and serve as a benchmark, financial benchmark to evaluate whether the project is on track or not. So basically, how we are going to estimate cost? The first one, we need to estimate the cost of the project as a whole from every single activity. So that means you can have a cost overall idea from all single activity. That is the projected cost of a project. The second one is analogous estimating. What is analogous estimating? Basically, you estimate your cost based on the keyword is historical data. All right, that means based on the past or similar past project, similar project to estimate the cost of the current project if it is similar. So this is very fast way and also high level estimations method, right? So, but it may not be accurate. Why is that so? Because the previous project could be somehow, somewhat different from our current project. So it is fast, but it might not be accurate because it was historical data. And the third one is actually parametric estimating. So parametric, that means involve calculation, involve mathematical model or historical data to estimate costs. That means something that can lead us to use formula to calculate. So this method usually apply a formula, particular formula or a set of parameters based on project specifics. So it could be like for example, we can calculate based on size. Let's say we know that, 1 meter square is this much. So in order to come out this project, it requires 300 meters square. Then we can just multiply accordingly because we have an estimate from the historical data, and we just do the calculation to generalize the entire cost that we got. So in short, parametric estimating involves using a formula for calculating the cost. And number four is bottom-up estimating. So bottom-up, as you can see from the name, it comes from the bottom, go to up, right? So that means that it's a detailed method where the costs are estimated for each individual activity or work package of the project. So it is like similar to projected cost of a project. But what is different is that it is actually calculated from the very first and simple activity from the bottom, right? So we actually estimate from the bottom first the cost up to the highest or maybe the latest or the final stage of cost. So that's why we call bottom up. So we get every individual estimate, every individual task, the cost that we estimated together, then we aggregate, that means we sum them up, then to determine the entire total project cost. So this method usually very accurate because you're going to estimate every single task, but the drawback is this is very time consuming because you are going through every single task. You're going to, you're going to like forecast or predict every single task cost required. So once you finish this, it takes already a lot of time, but it's really accurate. All right. And another very famous point is called 3 point estimate. Or 3 point estimate over here is we have to consider three scenarios. Whenever we want to do business, we have three scenarios. One is called optimistic scenario. Optimistic means good sign, good scenario. That means we will take the lowest possible cost. That means we will spend only the lowest possible cost. That is the optimistic side. The second point is pessimistic. Pessimistic, that means the opposite of optimistic, where you will take the highest possible cost. You need to, when you want to estimate cost, you need to think about this condition. If it comes with the best way, optimistic, that means you don't use much cost. It comes with the bad way, pessimistic, that means you are going to use the highest cost possible. And the third one is average scenario. Average scenario we call most likely situations where the cost is most probable to occur. That means it is not too positive, it is not too negative, it is usual situations. So what you need to do is you need to take the average of these three costs. That means the worst scenario, the best scenario, and the average scenario. You add up these three different costs and you take the average. Then that is usually accurate cost because you take into the considerations the best scenario and the worst scenario in total. Then you can get an average so that you are able to manage if these challenges really come to your project. This is called 3 point. I repeat again. Optimistic, that means you don't really use much cost, you will use the lowest. The second one is called pessimistic, which is you're going to use the highest cost. And the third one is called most likely. Most likely, that means you will use the average cost. So what will you do is you need to add up these three costs, divide by three. Then you will get the mean, isn't it? So this means serves as a point where it is in the between the best and the worst. So you are able to play around, or I would say manage if the situation turn best or turn worse. Then you can actually manage the situations, right? And last but not least, you also need to estimate the cost based on quality. Oftentimes we say that we need to pay a lot for quality costs. So what is quality cost? It refers to costs that associated with ensuring the project meets its quality standard. That means they are up to the standard in terms of quality. Then, of course, it include both of the costs incurred to prevent quality issue. That means we need to do something. You need to spend money to do something to prevent the quality issue from happening. Yeah, the prevention big cost as well, or something that you oversee it, you didn't really prevent it, then it become an issue that you need to repair, you need to rework, or you need to scrap the item. All this also need the cost. So quality cost is actually main type of two type of cost. One is that prevention cost, one is that reworking cost. That means something already bad, then you need to return the situations. Right? So these two costs you need to consider when you're estimating your costs, right? So these are the six techniques for you to estimate costs. So projected cost, that means overall cost from single activity. Analogies, historical data from the past, you just do as a reference. Parametric involve calculations. Bottom up, individual tasks from the bottom, the beginning until the end. Then you can sum up. 3 point, you take the average of the best and the worst and the middle. And cost of quality, two type of cost, prevention cost, as well as something that already happened related to cost, and you got to spend money to rectify it. Then you need that cost together. So you need to estimate cost based on the quality issue as well. So these are the estimating cost technique. So previously we talked about how we're going to estimate costs. Now, let's say we got to know all costs from every single individual. Now we want to determine budget. How are we going to determine budget? Of course, you know your cost from every single individual task. What you need to do, you just need to add them up. That's why we call cost aggregation. So cost aggregation, that means you just sum out all the individual costs at the work package level to develop the total project cost. Of course, this is very strict idea. Yeah, we got all the single individual costs. You just add them up, then you get a budget already. So this process, of course, we need to take the detailed cost, okay, estimate for every single activity in the project, and so that combine them as a whole, so that we know the total cost, or we don't say cost anymore, we say total budget for the project, because we get to know one lump sum money. So that is the first technique, cost aggregation. But that is not always the case. If it is so easy, of course, today we are not going to discuss about this. So the second method that we need to consider is called reserve analysis. So what does that mean? Reserve analysis is actually a process where we need to add contingency. So contingency reserve, that means we have a buffering fund. Buffering fund, that means we need to play safe. That is sudden incident come to you, right? So we need to play safe to the project budget to account for what, like what I said, play safe, unforeseen risk or uncertainty. Yeah. So budget is not just cost only from in every single individual, but also we need to uh, take care or cater for the needs of unforeseen circumstances. That's why we call reserve. All right. So this reserve are set aside of event or situations that are not part of the original planned activity for the project, but something that potentially uh, increase the entire budget due to unforeseen circumstances. So determine budget, not only the individual cost itself, but also something that potentially create and need your cost to settle on it. So we call reserve analysis. Then other than reserve analysis, you still need to consider when you come to budget historical data. So what does that mean? It means that we need to use information, historical, right? Information from the past to guide the budgeting process. So why or how? So this data usually provide, okay, let's say we take something in the past to tell you, okay, similar project, usually how much will this cost, how much time they need to complete, and where the cost usually will be spent. This based on the historical past similar project, we study about this. Because cost aggregation, you get to know from every single individual. You also reserve some cost for unforeseen issue, but you got to check with the past similar project also. Is this realistic or not? Is this the cost after cost aggregation plus reserve analysis? Is that enough? So we need to study with historical data. If it's almost the same, that means yes, our budget is somewhere there. But if it's not the same, we have to find out which part that require even more budget that maybe we don't really see it. Historical data can tell you this. So this method, of course, historical data help you create more accurate estimate lah, and learning from the previous experience. So if let's say after cost aggregation plus reservations, you still have a gap with historical data, that is something that you miss out. Then you got to study from there. Okay, and last but not least, you also need to determine your budget based on funding limit reconciliation. So what does that mean? It means involve the project spending. You need to involve the project spending, align with any financial constraint or funding limit by the stakeholder. So sometimes there are certain things, let's say in your project, in a certain part of the uh, tasks or activities that the company or the stakeholder or your bosses, they limit. They give you a budget as a whole, but they will tell you, example, we talk about educations. So higher educations, then we want to attract students to come and study with us. So maybe they say that I give you this such budget like $100,000, but my budget is not meant for education fair. There's a limit there. So funding limit, I give you a fund, overall budget, but it is maybe there is a constraint in certain individual tasks. Then you have to identify on it. So let's say education fair is not allowed, then we need to calculate the budget. Because suppose it's a package of the entire thing, but maybe your boss doesn't allow on that, or maybe your stakeholder doesn't agree with that. So when you determine your budget, you also need to identify the constraint limit. The constraint limit, the do and don'ts, then only you can incorporate into your budget calculations. So that is what we call determine budget. All right. So at the next part, after you estimated your cost, you tell people how much is your budget. Now you need to monitor and control. So we have a few techniques to control your cost. The first one is called earned value management. If this is first time to tell you, so let me tell you in a very simple way. We call EVM, or usually there's a short form we call EVM. Basically, this is used to track project budget and the progress. That means how much budget has been used and what is the current progress All right. So checking if you are getting the value from the money you spend or not. So usually how it works, how earned value management it works. It compare how much work, how much work has been completed. So how much work has been completed, that means your earned value. That means how much work has been completed in that particular project. So that much of completion, we call it as earned value in terms of project management, with how much you spend to complete and the amount that you actually spend. So basically here is that earned value management is to compare how much that you already complete in your project, how much you spend in your project at this time being, and compare that with the plan schedule and plan budget. So if they are on track, that means they are almost similar progress as what we planned. But if they are not, that means something behind or in front ahead of our schedule or under budget or over budget, then we shall look into it rather than just let it become go on and go on, then it become a big issue later on. Okay, so here is to highlight to you if your project actual spending, if your actual project spending is close or less than the earned value. Earned value means your completion status. So if let's say your project actual spending is quite close to what you have earned so far, what you have completed so far, then this is good. That means you are likely to stay on budget. But if it is more, that means whatever you spend more than the completion. Okay, that means you spend more, but your completion is less. So that could be overspending. Yeah. So basically, I would say that earned value management basically is to check how much completion status compared to your plan status. So how much you spend to complete until this stage and the plan budget. So whether it is more than the plan budget or less than the plan budget, so that it gives you a signal, a heads up, what is going on. All right. So that is the first thing to check. Second one, forecasting. What does that mean? That means your forecasting is about looking ahead to predict how much the project will cost. So we have a forecast first. So once you have a forecast, you get to check as well. Also, because it's controlling costs, so you get to check the status. So usually we will use the current spending and progress to estimate the final cost of the project. So basically, if this is the stage now, so how much I need to spend until the entire project is done, how long I need based on the current speed. This is the forecasting. So your forecast will keep changing based on the we call current schedule or current progress. So forecasting will help you to have the latest cost estimation after that, so you can control your cost based on the current situations. All right. So the key idea here is that if you are spending faster than planned, you're spending faster. That means you are not supposed to spend that much, but you already spent more than that than what you have planned. Forecasting help you to see early. See early of what? Of that project might go over budget because you spend more than what you should spend. So you should make adjustment already because forecasting will tell you, suppose at this stage you are supposed to, based on the past project, you're supposed to spend that much, or based on other people project, you're supposed to spend that much, but it is not this case for you. So something is wrong, then you need to adjust, make plan adjustments already. All right. And the next one is two complete performance index, like what I mentioned earlier. We got a complete performance index, yeah, the cost performance index and also the schedule performance index. So over here is a little bit different, is that we have a both idea complete performance index, or we call two complete performance index. The short form we usually abbreviation is called TCPI. So this TCPI is actually indication of a level of performance you need to meet with your remaining budget. That means the performance level that every project have to meet if you set for it. So at this time being, you're supposed to reach this performance. So with the remaining budget, because the later budget is only meant for the later part. If it's under the performance, that means we need more budget. So it is not enough already. So we need to do something about it. Yeah. So controlling cost always kind of like the technique is to serve as an alert for you, whether it is on par or not. If it is not, then we need to do something for the cost already. All right. So that is do complete performance index. Number four, variance analysis. So variance analysis here is to check difference between what was planned and what was actually happened. So what did you plan and what is really going on? Is that a gap or not? If there's a gap, that means that is a variation. That's why I call variant analysis. All right. So cost variance over here, that means the different variant, you can understand it as difference, shows if you are over or under the budget, because that is different, right? There's a gap. So we will have a cost variance. Cost variance, that means the difference between planned cost and actual cost. We have another one we call schedule variant. Schedule variant, as the name tells you, the gaps in schedule, whether you are behind the schedule or you are ahead of the schedule. So variant analysis, it got two types. Cost variant, that means different in cost. Schedule variant, different in schedule. All right. So this will let you to pinpoint specific area of concern, whether it is about cost or whether it is about schedule. So you will get to know, okay, so there's a gap. So what was going on? The variant analysis highlights to you it is no longer on time. So something is wrong somewhere. Then we need to really look into it. And lastly, performance review. So performance review also another type of technique of control cost. That means we need to regular check in on how the project is going because we need to look at the performance. We need to look at the project progress. So this, usually we will have a meeting to give a team a chance to discuss any issues. Let's say we are in the same department, then we are doing something, then we always discuss what are the issues that we face. Then we track whether the project stick to the budget or not. Do we take more money already, or we take less money, or we are actually on par with what we planned, so we can make necessary changes. So performance review, that means everybody from different expert in this same project, then we sit down together to review our performance, what was going on. So how was everyone? Are you really focusing or adhering to the budget that we plan? Right? So by reviewing all these cost control metrics, we look at this, the team can catch the problem early because we review and we discuss, we look at the problem earlier and we can take the necessary approach to manage the costs. All right. So basically controlling costs, we have a few methods, but what I can say in lump sum is that, as the overall impressions, usually is to check the current status, or we call actual status with the planned status, whether the costs they are the same or they are different, whether the schedule they are almost the same or they are actually having different schedules. So if they are the same, that means everything is good. So you can just go as planned. If it is not the same, identify the issue and address them accordingly. All right. So if it's not something that we cannot address anymore, then you need to change the later part. So like what I mentioned, either you lower down the budget or you call more funding come in to fill up those blank, those necessary blankage that we need to do, or you need to call a stop for that particular moment. All right. So earned value analysis. So just now we mentioned a little bit about that earned value management, right? So what is actually I mentioned about this before: plan, earn, and actual. So basically here, plan value, like what we understand from this wording is that plan value is the total cost estimate plan to be spent. Or we plan to spend that much of cost for the project activity in a given time. This is the plan value. So in another words, or we put it in a simple term, is that how much you plan to have spent on the project so far. That is called plan value. But what is earned value? Earned value is the estimate of the value. Is all the estimations of the value of the physical work completed so far. That means how much we have completed so far. So the the percentage that we really complete, that is called earn. So earn value, that means how much we have earned, so we have completed so far. So it shows the amount of work that has been actually done in terms of the budget, in terms of money. Yeah. So plan is how much you plan to spend. Earn value is by that particular time, how much percent that you have completed, or how much money that you have already completed. And actual value is what is really happening. in terms of, I mean, rather than what you have planned and what you have earned. Actual value basically here means actual costs. The total amount of money you actually spend on work completed by a specific time. So actual value, that means the actual budget. All right. So I make it in short is that plan value, how much you plan to spend. Earn value, how much you have completed. Actual value, how much you actually spend to get the earned value. So why we need to study this? Like what I mentioned, earned value analysis is to compare actual to planned value. All right. Okay, and rate of performance also another type that we can look at into, the cost controlling. So rate of performance, like for the first point, as you can see, it is actually the ratio. Ratio, that means we take the actual completion, actual work completion, divide by percentage of work planned to have been completed. So what does that mean? We look at example. For example, end of week one, we have installed the server, okay, and it was halfway completed. That means it's only 50% done. But plan schedule indicate that it's supposed to be done 100%. So what was planned is 100%, but we have only done 50%. So what we need to do is we take the completion, we put on top the numerator divided by what we plan, put in the bottom, the denominator, 100%. That means 50% divided by 100%. At the end of the day, our rate performance is 50%. That means based on what we plan is supposed to be 100%, but it go only half of it. That means it go only 50%. So our performance is we are able to achieve 50% of it only. That is called rate performance. So with that scenario, it actually highlights to you something happening, something is wrong, then you need to look into it because you already put in that much 100% of cost, but at the end you earn only the value of 50%. And the actual spending is that you already spend, maybe you really spend that much 100%, but you only achieve 50% of the value. So you take more than the cost expected already. So we need to look at it. So rate of performance, another type of way to control costs. Okay, all right. So the cost budgeting. So when we have the cost, we need to budget each of the single costs. So basically, cost budgeting is a very important process, especially for businesses, for management. So this is very important because the project total cost, the project the overall cost is planned. Usually we plan first and distributed to various activity inside the project. So it ensures that a project has enough funding. Yeah, why we want to do cost budgeting? Because we want to make sure that every single activity that require cost, they get what they're supposed to get so that the cost can have sufficient funding to proceed with the project and we can track the spending along the way. We can track how much we have already spent. All right, so cost budgeting here, we have four benefits. The first one is that we allocate the project cost estimate. So what does that mean? That means we are able to divide the total budget. Budget usually as a whole, we can divide the total budget into smaller portion and assigning this amount to individual tasks. So cost budgeting basically, that means we take the budget, we put the breakdown costs into different activity into the project. So this is really good because we can see every single activity, how much cost they take from the total budget. That is the first point, allocation. All right, now we go to the second one on the right hand side, provide info for project funding requirement. So when we do cost budgeting, you also need to how to say, give a clear view, give a clear view of when fund will be needed. So when you do cost budgeting, you will know, okay, by this month or by this date, we need how much. Yeah, because you have the so-called Gantt chart or something like that. It helps the project manager to understand how much funding is required at different project stages. So this is good because when you want to do cost budgeting, you have to plan based on the time frame, right? And the third one, estimating cost for each major project activity over time. So what does that mean? It means that we need to break down the cost, the cost associated with each individual task activity in the project. That means we need to break down. So that means instead of having just one lump sum for the whole project, it provides specific estimate, I would say, in each activity when it progresses. All right. So this is an example like in a software department. Example in a software department. So you might estimate 5,000 in planning, $15,000 in coding, and 10,000 for testing. So these costs, all different type of costs allocated based on each activity happen. All right, so this is like what is different the first one and the third one. The first one is on work item. So work item basically like material, all that we need. But the second one is actually project activity. So one is about the item uh, itself. The second one is about activity. But both of them also cost to individualize specific costs. Specific cost. The first one is on the item, work item. The third one is meant for activity itself. And the last one used to measure monitor cost performance. So if you have a proper cost budgeting, then you can measure and monitor. So the idea is the same. We are going to compare and check again. So allow the project manager to compare the actual cost with budgeted amount. Excuse me. So whether the actual cost align with what we have budgeted or not. So this helps us in tracking whether the project is on budget, over budget, or under budget. So we can use for measurement. This is the function of cost budgeting. Okay, sorry. Okay, so what are the benefits? So why we want to do cost budgeting? I think this is understandable. Meeting budget goals. So cost budgeting, of course, help us to make sure that our project stay within the allocated budget. So we have every project has its own budget. So we need to make sure that it is actually aligned with our budget. How? Based on the budget, we allocate to individual activity. So if we are able to allocate appropriately, everyone stay within budget. Yeah. So all this thankfully to our cost budgeting because it helps you to estimate every single task cost. The second one, realistic project estimate. When you do cost budgeting, you need to estimate the cost, remember? So you will come with the realistic estimations. So realistic estimations here talk about clear, realistic estimations for each phase of the project usually based on what like just now we have uh, 6 ways. One of it is historical data or careful analysis. So when you want to do budgeting in terms of cost management, then you will come with the realistic estimation, which is good for your project because you really look into the estimations, then you can plan for the entire budget. Third one, earned value management, like what I mentioned just now. Earned value management, we want to combine the cost and the schedule, these two things. So we want to check whether we can check as the project continues. So we can check whether they are on budget or off budget, whether they are on schedule or they are off schedule. Without cost budgeting, you will never able to check because you got nothing to compare, isn't it? Number four, cost account, the benefit of this cost budgeting. So cost account, that means you can assign cost to specific project account because different individual tasks we have different accounts, isn't it? So we can assign cost to every single account so that we have a clear breakdown of our expenses from our budget. So we know that are we going to spend here and there, then we can track, we can also control the cost accurately. Like for example, we have a project, but for activity A, we only allocate, let's say, $10,000. So how are we going to spend on that? Then we will keep our eye on that. So every single task has their own budget. So we can check and track accordingly. And the last one, rate of performance, the one that I mentioned, how much you complete over how much you put in as a cost. So rate of performance basically is enable you as well track whether the pace of the work completion, that means the speed, whether they are really on time or not, or on the project speeds or not against the budget. So this shows that if project is progressing, that means if the project keep going as expected, then if it is on time, on budget, not to say on completion in terms of budget, everything is good. But if it's not, then we need to look into it. The look into it means we need to look at the area of improvement. So that will improve not only your schedule, but also will improve your cost allocation, especially your next project, similar project. Then you have an idea what you need to do. So cost budgeting allow you to do that. Then cost budgeting, that means cost management. Budgeting, that means you budget them so that they will stay within the budget. So it's a way of manage your costs. All right. So this is, I think, like a summary. What are the benefits for cost budgeting? So that you can complete within the allocated budget. You have a budget, at least you don't overspend. Just like when you go traveling, you always people ask you, hey, how much is your budget? So are you go with a luxury budget? So you have a budget, then of course you will plan your flight tickets, your accommodations, places that you're going to visit. The same idea, right? So when you come in terms of businesses or management, it's always project in the company. So you need to set a limit so that they can spend the money based on the limit, right? And the second one, if you are having cost budgeting, you can have accurate cost estimate and realistic budget, because cost budgeting forces us to look at every single individual task. Then every single individual task based on the past historical data or past similar project, we got to estimate. We have 6 ways to do that, or bottom up or whatever. So we can have accurate cost estimate and realistic budget. So from there, we don't overspend, or we don't do something that possible, feasible for us to do, but we worry too much on the cost, then we give up to do it. Then we might lose in terms of returns or luxury returns. So when you do cost budgeting, it forces you to estimate the cost. And when you do the estimating cost, you will have realistic budget. Okay. And when you do cost budgeting, you are able to calculate ROI, return on investment. So what is that again? What you get in at the end over how much cost you put in. Of course, you can get your revenue figures at the end, but without cost budgeting, you don't know how much cost you put in, or you are not sure how much you put in, or maybe you overspend or miss out something. So you have cost budgeting, that means you can track how much you already put in. So what you have gained in return or outcome, divide by your income, I mean, like, sorry, your input, output and input, what you have get as an output, divide by your cost as an input. So if your output is higher than your input, that is to say you get positive return on investment, and that is a decision to say that you got a positive return on investment for your project. That is something that we need to report, yeah, to our stakeholders. All right. And yeah, we are almost there. Let me do this. Primavera. So Primavera is actually a project management tools related to cost management. So how does it help? It has various functions like what we can see here. The first one is budgeting. So it can let you, it is a software, of course, it's a tools. Then you can plan and track your budget along the project progress. Then you can ensure that the funds are allocated because you will list out your different tasks and resources, then you're going to put in your budget and costs. So from there, you have a proper way to do your budgeting. All right. Then also, after you put in your budgeting, you are able to identify the cost variance. Remember what is cost variance? The difference between the budgeted cost, or we plan cost, and the actual cost. So what you have planned until this stage and what you have really spent until this stage, we can do a comparison. So if there's a difference, we call that a cost variance. So Primavera can help you to see this very clearly. And the third one is labor cost. Now, labor cost also you can put inside these tools. So it helps you to monitor labor expenses. That means how much you need to pay for the labor by tracking. Usually we need to take two issues: how much time needed and how much money you need to spend for this labor costs. So you will take into two consideration how long and how much for labor costs. So you got a lot of things to consider, but Primavera help you to put in all the information in one place. Number four, total project costing. While you put everything in inside, as one single place, of course, it provide you complete view, okay, of the total project, because it can add up all single activity, task, resources, then you can see it as a whole, right? And you can earn value report. remember what is that? Earned value analysis is to check the budget and also check the schedule whether they are on or off from what we have planned. So they will give you a report where you can assess your performance by comparing what was planned and what is the actual one. Are there any differences or not? So how much is the differences? What is going on? The report can tell you all that. And other than that, it has also cost account. Like what I mentioned, every single individualized, they will have an account. Then they will actually put in the cost. So Primavera help you to see every single task and every single account, the debit and the credit, the expenses and the incomes. Then you know that how the cash flow go. Then cost account can help you see that. And Primavera also can let you see the project expenses, where it helps you to monitor and record all project related expenses, when, what you spend and how much you spend. And another wonderful thing, Primavera also manage currency because it can handle multiple currency, but not many lah, but it can handle multiple currency. Easier for manage project with international cost if there's any, especially your supplier come from international platform, then you need to deal with currency. And also, Primavera also provide you budget summary. That means an overview of your budget so that allow the project managers to see the financial allocation and the limit. Like, how much allocated for me and where I can spend and where I cannot spend. All this budget summary. And funding detail as well, let you know that where does the fund come from, the sources, and what are the requirements from the funders. So what are the requirements set on you so that we have the idea what they want and what is expected on us. All these information can be put under Primavera software. All right. And the last but not least is MSP. Very famous. We call Microsoft project. Yeah. So if I'm able to access it, so it almost the same as Primavera, but it has a less functions. But it got the earned value management. Again, earned value management is like what I mentioned, comparing the actual and the planned one. So if there's a difference, like what I mentioned, earned value management, you see the arrow, go to compare plan and actual value. Okay, so if it's on track, congratulations. If it's not, we need to identify the root cause. Then it also manage currency, especially when we deal with international costs, and also it manage project expenses, how much we spent as an overall idea, all will be recorded under Microsoft project, or we call it as MSP, right? And then this is just a very simple case study. Pearl River Tower, it is actually in Guangzhou, not mistaken. This is a tower where it's a great example of cost management, right? You can Google to study more detail about it because it's really good in terms of cost management. So one of it is very famous is the energy efficiency, the way they cut their costs or manage their costs in terms of energy, so which reduce long-term operating costs. Yeah, I think nowadays electricity bill, I think the highest compare all. But if you are able to, play around or facilitate with the energy efficiency, there you go, you save a lot of costs. So in this case, Pearl River Tower, they invest energy saving technology in the tower. So the project save on electricity bill over time. The longer you do that, the longer, the much cost that you actually save. And this making it financially smart decisions, the Pearl Review Tower. All right. So yeah, with that, I ended my sharing sessions over here. But just to let you know, as a whole, yeah, cost management basically, after I tell so much, what is all about? We need to plan. We need to plan the budget. So after we plan the budget, how we actually plan, we need to estimate the cost from every single task in the project. Then after that, we tell people overall budget. After that, we allocate the budget into single individual activity again, and we monitor them. Once we monitor them, we need to check what was planned and what is really achieving. Are they the same or not? So that is earned value analysis. If they are the same, good. If they are not the same, you need to do something. Either adjust the budget for the later part, or you call in more funding, or you need to stop to identify the root cause. So cost management is like something that I would say pre-planning before your project starts, so that everything will be in place, especially costs. Because a company or a business or a project without a cost planning, then basically we are in a risk because we might lose it halfway because might not able to proceed with it, or we need to spend much more money without our expectation. So with that, it is a risk for our company where profit and ROI is our ultimate considerations. All right, so I hope that you have a great understanding about what I share. So yeah, I open to the floor. Any questions that you would like to ask me?
Thank you, Dr. Teoh, for
Oh,
your
12:30 already. I'm so
presentation.
sorry.
And I think we have what,
Okay, so sorry.
yeah, I think we have what questions in the chat box. So what the strategy? It's okay.
So sorry.
So what strategy
Cannot hear
can be
you
employed
properly.
to, yeah,
Oh, you are
sorry?
reading the question, is it? You are reading the
Yeah, I
question
will.
from the. Okay, okay. All right. Haha.
It's okay. So
Uh,
we had was one question from Devi Agustina.
okay. All
What
right.
strategies can be employed to improve cost efficiency in long-term project or large-scale initiative? Thank you, Dr.
Thank you, Alicia, yeah, for the question. Yeah, I also moved to the chat box. Yeah, thank you for the question, Devi Agustina. So, like what I mentioned, we have a few strategy, especially in a long term or I would say a large scale project. The first one, we need to optimize resource allocation. That means they need that much, or we need to really estimate how much they really need, then we optimize, we give what they really need rather than maximize it rather than minimize it. Because minimize, they might need more, but we didn't give that much. So maybe the project might not come in the quality or they couldn't continue. And the second one, like what I mentioned, we need to track the cost regularly. So it's regularly the best one. It doesn't have to be daily, but at least it has to be weekly. So once we can track the cost, then at least we can adjust the cost accordingly so that the project will be in place. Then this is what I mentioned earlier. And also another one is control the project scope. Sometimes we cannot be too ambitious, yeah, to do like what we want overall, especially the cost is only meant for this small or I would say narrow scope, then we have to be realistic that this cost is only for this area. Otherwise, if we want to achieve even more with the limited cost, then it is not efficiency. And also we need to apply lean practices, especially in a lot of we call manufacturing company or industry. We apply lean so that the cost can be maximized for its usage. Yeah, lean, that means we don't really waste it in appropriate places. And also maybe another way we can outsource. Okay, outsource certain tasks to other people where it can actually save much more cost rather than you self doing it. If we need to check and we need to plan, if outsourcing is always better than we do it alone, then we better outsource it. And we can also negotiate in the purchasing department, procurement. So in order to lower the cost, so maybe we can buy in big bulks, then it will be better for us. So let's say there's a discount if we buy more, that is something that we can consider as well. And then we can also use cross-functional teams. Oftentimes we have different experts from different teams. Then we can brainstorm together. We can have a better idea together how we are going to use the cost strategically. That is something that we can do about that. And also, last but not least, especially now very uncertain time in our world, we need to do risk assessment. So when there's a time where it is not uh, uh, bright side for our project at the moment. So maybe we don't allocate cost for that project yet. So if it is a time, or I would say opportunity to do it, to launch it, then only we done it. Otherwise, our cost allocated will not be efficient. Yeah, I hope I answer your question. Okay. All right. Any more? Or Alicia?
I'm sorry, Dr. Teoh, my computer actually
Sorry?
out from the Zoom. Yeah, I'm Alicia, Dr. Teoh. So actually, my Zoom out from the Zoom. So
I can't
uh,
hear you, Miss Alicia. Quite soft.
Now can you hear?
Yeah,
Can
yeah.
you hear me
Loud
now?
and
Yeah.
clear.
Okay. So sorry, my account is logged out from the Zoom
Mhm.
because the internet
Okay.
connections. Okay. So student, if you still have any questions, you can just ask to Dr. Theo, or you can write your question in the chat box.
I also provide my email if, let's say, you have something to ask me later on. Yeah, you can also write to me.
Yeah, okay, thank you, Dr. Theo. So, student, if you still have another questions, you can just uh,
Yeah,
send your
thank,
question on the Dr. Theo email. Okay, great.
yeah, thank you also a response to Devi, Christina. Thank you for the questions.
Thank you, Dr. Theo.
Thank you.
I think there are no more questions for today. So, I think we can end the class today. So thank you so much, Dr. Theo, for your participation in this online class. And I think, and we have one more meeting tomorrow.
Yeah,
Okay, so thank you so much, Dr. Theo,
thank
and
you so
also,
much.
and to all students. Don't forget, we are still have another one class, online class in this afternoon, and I will share the details on the WhatsApp group. And okay, thank you to all, and see you in another online class. Thank you, Dr. Theo.
Thank you, Alicia. Thank you, AIBPM. Thank you, all students, for your time. Yeah, it's great to my honor to share my knowledge with all of you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Theo.